Hello and welcome to Blue Army TV. I'm sitting here after Carlisle have been beaten 1-0 at home to Cheltenham in what is one of the most damning results of this season. I think it was such a big 6-pointer today, and to come out on the wrong end of it at home against bottom of the league, you know, it's just it's really heartbreaking to see the team that, you know, we idolise put in a performance like that. And the worst part about it is it doesn't really come as much as a surprise. You know, I wasn't confident going into today, and I don't think many people were, and most importantly, I don't think the players were. I think too much this season we've been, you know, we've been guilty of not believing ourselves to be good enough for League One. And I think that's been a big issue this season, and it came out today. And it's almost as if every single time I see Carlisle play in League One, and every single time this season that we play, we don't look like a League One team. We look like a National League or League Two team that's drawn a League One team in the FA Cup or the League Cup. You know, we seem to play as if we know the opposition is better than us, when at times they're not. When at times today, you know, we show teams too much respect, I think, and you know, maybe not too much this game, but you know, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I just don't think we think we're good enough, and that's entirely a confidence issue. And look, to a degree, they're right, because Paul Simpson's spoken about it before. We need quality, we need reinforcements, and you know, one of the big areas coming off this game, you're going to have to look at the goalkeeping department, because look, regardless of whether you want Thomas Hawley as your first choice, which I don't think after the last few games he should be anywhere near that first choice, we've only really got Gabriel Breeze on top of that, who, you know, if I was Gabriel Breeze, I'd be banging on the manager's door saying, what more have I got to do to get into the starting 11? Because look, I don't know how he trains, but every single week Thomas Hawley seems to make a mistake. Let's look back at the last few games, shall we? Think about today. He caused the only goal. It was an absolute howler, probably the worst mistake I've seen him, you know, do this season, or even in his entire time at Carlisle. The week before, shot right at him, he palms into his own net. Week before that, pats a cross right into the path of one of the Blackpool attackers. And look, I can't remember what game was before that, but all I know is that every single game now, our goalkeeper makes a horrendous error. And when we can't score goals, conceding like that is a massive detriment to us. And it's you know, if you can't win games, don't lose them. But through these errors, and you look at last week and you look at this week, right? Yes, I know we didn't play well today, but we played well at Northampton. We probably should have won, and we probably would have without goalkeeping issues. If we take away goalkeeping errors from the last few games, we get a 2-0 loss at Blackpool, which is, you know, I'd argue significantly less embarrassing than a 3-0 defeat. We beat Northampton 2-1 or 2-0. And we get a point today, which puts us out of the relegation zone. And looking good going into the new year, and going into, and I know we've still got Boxing Day to come, and I'll talk about that later, but, you know, going into the January transfer window, we're in a lot healthier position, a lot more, you know, attractive position to players coming in. But now we're sitting joint bottom with the team that have just played us off the park and beaten us, only off bottom of the league on goal difference. And look, to be honest, Paul Simpson said it best himself. Cheltenham deserved to win. We didn't deserve anything out in that game, even without the goalkeeping error. You know, Cheltenham played well enough to win, but Cheltenham are down there because of their attacking woes, similar to us. They can't score. They've set new records for being, you know, some of the worst attacking teams. I think they didn't score a goal for the first something like 10 games of the season. Now they're level on points with us. Now they've won more games than us. We've only won 3 games this season, the lowest in the division. And even when you look at some of the games we did win, you look back at Bolton and you look back at Burton, even when we win, we concede first. We've conceded first for nearly every single game this season, and I can only think that it's a mentality thing, because you look at the defenders at the back, and as much as Paul Simpson likes to talk about personnel, and he is right to point that out, but you look at the back line, and I think on paper it's maybe one of our strongest areas. Jack Armour, I think, is good enough. You look at Josh Emanuel on the other side, who's just signed. You know, he's very much a League One player on his day, and he got man of the match today. Somehow, you know, it's similar to Luke Plange. It's one of them ones where you don't deserve man of the match, but you get it because no one else really deserves it. And then you look at John Mellish, an absolute hero to Carlisle fans, tries his best every single game, and I think he's good enough. You've got Sam Lavelle, our captain, who I think is a good defender. Then you've got Paul Huntington, who's played at a lot higher level than this before, who admittedly didn't play today, but, you know, even beyond that, Ben Barkley, you know, I've got a print of him just up there. You know, playoff hero, and admittedly, I don't think he's good enough for League One. Same with Corey Whelan, but you can afford to have one of them players in that backline, and it still be a suitable League One backline. But, and I think even last season, and it seemed to be last season that whenever you slated Thomas Hawley, you would get a lot of stick online. And you know, I was guilty of that because I did criticise him a lot last season, even when we were winning games. Just by the fact that even if he doesn't make a mistake, even if you look at the stats and you see that he had the most clean sheets last season in League Two, or you look at things like that, you could tell from the vast majority of time he's been here, he doesn't demand confidence, and he just doesn't look confident. And you know, he still made these mistakes in League Two, but we seem to get away with it. Like, if he does what he did today in League Two, a lot of the times the striker isn't going to be awake enough, and John Mellish just comes in and clears it, which, you know, has happened before in League Two. But we've got a keeper here who I don't think the defenders are confident with him behind them. I don't think, you know, he's really confident in his own abilities. You know, you saw him today, he was so scared to come for anything after he made that mistake. And being a goalkeeper, it's one of the positions on the pitch, it's the position on the pitch where you need to be confident in your own abilities. You need to be confident to make decisions. You can't be flapping at stuff. You can't second guess yourself. You can't get in your own head, because and that's what Thomas Hawley seems to have done. And I know I'm not helping by making this kind of comment on a YouTube video, which he might see, but it's more of a call to the club that we need reinforcement in that area. And you look at the goalkeepers we've had in the past, and I genuinely think Carlisle fans have been spoilt for choice with goalkeepers in the past, because people like to big up Thomas Hawley, and admittedly he did have a brilliant game in the playoff final, and he's had his moments for Carlisle, but let's look back at the goalkeepers of the past we've had before, and I don't think I've been worried and as scared having them at the back as I would of Thomas Hawley. We'll just run through some names real quick. Mark Howard, the one before, unreal goalkeeper, didn't step a foot wrong. Farman, before that, yeah, I can't really fault that at all. Adam Collin, brilliant servant for the club, did really well. Magnus Norman, I think Magnus Norman was maybe a bit too big, which I know people say that about Thomas Hawley, and they'll be right. I think Magnus Norman and Thomas Hawley were probably of a similar level, and you know, people won't like me saying that, but I just think both of them were just a bit too big for their roles, and both of them wouldn't come out and claim crosses like they should have done. But look, I can't spend this entire episode slating the goalkeeper despite the drastic errors and despite the change that needs to happen in January, because look, after the back of that, you're gonna have to be looking in the transfer market, because you just can't not. If you've got this much money and you've got the opportunity to bring in a better goalkeeper, then you've got to do it. If Thomas Hawley's costing us a goal every week, then he's not good enough. No matter how much people like him, and I like him, you know, he seems like you know, you hear him speak, he's hear him in interviews, he sounds absolutely lovely, you know, people like listening to him talk, but if he's costing us a goal every week, it doesn't matter how lovely he is, because he's going to have to get dropped to the bench, or maybe further from the bench, you know, with Anderson and maybe Gabriel Breeze breaking through. But look, there's no way he can be our first choice coming out of this January transfer window. I think we need a good keeper, and look, a big thing with Thomas Hawley being brought in was that he wanted it. Is that Paul Simpson didn't want an aging goalkeeper like Mark Howard. But in this first season in League One, I think the aim really needs to just be survive, keep it up, keep it simple. You know, bring in a goalkeeper that might not be the highest quality, but just somebody you can rely on, like what Mark Howard was when he first came in. And look, the problem with Mark Howard is that he was too small. He never set a foot wrong, but he wouldn't make some absolutely brilliant saves. Like, it goes without saying that Thomas Holdey's obviously got a lot longer reach than Mark Howard, but a big thing with goalkeeping is the goalkeeping brain. And I always used to say when we had Howard and Norman that if you could stick the goalkeeping brain of Mark Howard into the body of Magnus Norman, you'd have a Premier League goalkeeper. And I think we just need somebody with a good goalkeeping brain to just to calm things down at the back, just to get that bit of confidence back in the defence. Because if you've got a good, confident keeper behind you, the defence is a lot better, and it's a lot more confident passing back to the keeper. You're a lot more confident leaving things for the keeper. It just makes the defender's job a lot easier. But yeah, some other talking points today. We made bottom of the league look like a brilliant team, and we were outplayed. You look at the midfield, we lost the midfield battle. Owen Moxon on the bench, rightfully so in my opinion, with the performances he's been putting in. But Dylan McGeoch, Jack Robinson, and Alfie McCallum with the midfielders. They worked well last week. It was an unchanged 11 from the Northampton game. But it just didn't click like it did at Northampton last week. And then you've got to look at the front two with Luke Plange and... So it was a front three even. It was a Jordan Gibson slightly behind the front two with Joe Garner and Luke Plange up top. And look, I just don't think either of them did enough. I forgot Luke Plange was on the pitch. Until he was brought off, I was like, oh, I forgot he was here. And I think that man of the match performance last week, which wasn't a man of the match performance, he was awarded man of the match, and people gave him a lot of credit because I think people felt sorry for him after Simo's comments, which is something in professional football in a relegation battle. You can't afford to feel sorry for players, which is what a lot of people did with Luke Plange last week, and that's why he got man of the match. Even in that Northampton game, he wasn't great. He made a few little flicks and tricks, and he looked a little bit better than what he had done in previous weeks, which was zero. He'd done nothing. And Paul Simpson made people feel sorry for him by, criticising the fans when they booed him. But look, he shouldn't be starting up top for Carlisle. I've got this dreadful fear that his loan's going to get extended past January, and I think it might happen. Because Paul Simpson seems to love playing him, seems to, he must be brilliant in training because he's not great on a Saturday. And you change the strikers to Edmondson and Maguire. Edmondson scores a goal last week. They both look better than the starting strikers this week as well. And you've just got to think, what's Edmondson got to do at starting this team? I know he had a slight falling out with the manager early on in the season with Edmondson wanting to drift out wide. But look, what more has he got to do? Because he's done more in the last couple of games than Planger's done in his entire career at Carlisle. And you just think he needs to be starting. He's a lot more of an aerial threat. He's a lot more reliable. He's a lot better from set pieces. And then you've got Sean Maguire, the big money signing, who is, maybe the answer is Garner and Edmondson, but it's definitely not Garner and Plange. I think people can see that, and they've been able to see that for a while now. It just needs to come from the manager. That change just needs to come from Paul Simpson. But yeah, look, it's a really disappointing result, and it sees us in a really awful position going into this next Fleetwood game because, we're now in a position where we really need to win at Fleetwood, because if Cheltenham take confidence in that result, and I'm sure they will, they go and win next week, and all of a sudden we're 3 points cut adrift at the bottom of the league, and that can't be allowed to happen coming in that January window. We need to look like we're still in it to attract players to the club, and look, the money might speak for itself, but if we go into January and we are rock bottom by quite a few points, I wouldn't want to go to that club. If I'm a decent League 2 player or a decent League 1 player even, and I look and I see Carlisle coming in for me, I quickly look at my phone where they're at in the table. Oh, they're rock bottom. Oh, and they're 3 points cut adrift. I'm not going to want to go to that club. Are you? Yeah, they might be able to afford a little bit of a better wage, but if it's going to destroy your career with a relegation, and look, a relegation is not something anybody wants on their CV, especially in football. But yeah, look, maybe I'm overreacting. I don't think I am, and I think the boos at full time were absolutely justified for what was a dreadful performance, and it looked like and something that Carlisle can't be accused of this season is not putting in effort. Today it looked like a lack of effort. Today it looked like a lack of ability, a lack of effort, a lack of ability, and just all round know how to survive and play games in League One. But I've talked for long enough, as I'm sure you'll agree. So thank you for sitting through this. Thank you for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and in a bit.